Imagine this. You're one of the most famous musicians in the entire world. You've written some of the greatest songs ever created, songs that everyone knows, songs that changed music forever. But here's the crazy part. You don't own those songs anymore. Someone else does, and not just anyone. Your friend bought them, the same friend you taught about the music business, the same friend you made songs with, the same friend who sat at your dinner table. That friend, Michael Jackson, and the musician who lost everything, Paul McCartney, one of the Beatles, the most successful band in human history. This is the story of how a friendly piece of advice turned into one of the biggest betrayals in music history, how a $47.5 million deal destroyed a friendship, and how one of the smartest business moves ever made in entertainment caused pain that lasted for decades. This isn't just about money. This is about trust, friendship, and what happens when business gets in the way of everything else. Are you ready? Because this story is absolutely wild. Before we dive into this incredible story, I want to ask you something. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Michael Jackson was wrong for what he did? Or was he just being smart about business? I really want to know what you think. The answer might surprise you as you watch this video. And hey, if you love stories about music, celebrities, and the crazy things that happen behind the scenes, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the notification bell too. That way you'll never miss another video like this one. We post stories like this every single week. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Okay, let's get into it. Let's go back in time. The year is 1982. Michael Jackson is 24 years old. He's already famous from his days with the Jackson 5. But something bigger is about to happen. He releases an album called Thriller. You've probably heard of it. Your parents have definitely heard of it. Your grandparents have heard of it. Why? Because Thriller became the best-selling album of all time. We're talking about 70 million copies sold worldwide. That's more than any other album in history. Michael Jackson wasn't just famous anymore. He was the king of pop, the biggest star on the planet. Everyone wanted to work with him. Everyone wanted to be his friend. And one of those friends, Paul McCartney. Now, let me tell you about Paul McCartney real quick. If you don't know who he is, you need to pay attention. Paul McCartney was one of the Beatles. The Beatles were a band from England that changed music forever in the 1960s. They wrote songs that your great-grandparents loved. Songs that your grandparents played, songs that your parents still know all the words to, and songs that you've probably heard 100 times without even realizing it. Paul McCartney, along with John Lennon, wrote most of those songs. They were the masterminds, the creative geniuses. They created music that would last forever. So when Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney became friends, it was a big deal. These were two of the biggest names in music history hanging out together. They didn't just hang out, though. They made music together. In 1982, they recorded a song called The Girl Is Mine. It was a duet that appeared on Michael's Thriller album. Then in 1983, they recorded Say, Say, Say. Both songs were huge hits. They were real friends. They spent time together. They ate dinner together. Paul even visited Michael's home. Michael visited Paul's home. Their families knew each other. This wasn't a fake Hollywood friendship. This was real. And during one of those friendly conversations, Paul McCartney gave Michael Jackson a piece of advice. Advice that would change everything. Picture this scene. Michael Jackson is at Paul McCartney's house. They're having dinner. They're talking about music, life, and the business side of things. Paul McCartney pulls out a big book. It's thick. It's full of information. He shows it to Michael. See this, Paul says. This is a book of all the songs I own. Michael is curious. He asks questions. What does it mean to own songs? How does that work? Why is it important? Paul explains everything. Here's the thing about music that most people don't understand. When you write a song, that song is like property. It's like owning a house or a car. But instead of living in it or driving it, you own the rights to it. When you own the rights to a song, you make money every time that song is played. On the radio, in a movie, in a commercial, at a concert, in a store, everywhere. If someone wants to use that song, they have to pay you every single time. So if you own 100 songs and those songs get played 1,000,000 times, you make a lot of money. But if you own 1,000 songs, 10,000 songs, songs that have been popular for decades. You become extremely wealthy. Paul McCartney understood this. He had been buying song catalogs for years. He owned songs by other artists. He owned publishing rights to music he didn't even write. And he told Michael Jackson, "This is the secret. This is how you build real wealth in the music industry. You buy music publishing catalogs." Michael listened carefully. He was always a good student. He paid attention to everything. Paul probably thought he was just giving friendly advice to a younger artist. He was being a mentor, a teacher, a good friend. But Michael Jackson took that advice very, very seriously, more seriously than Paul ever imagined. Now let's talk about something called ATV Music Publishing. ATV was a British company that owned the rights to thousands of songs, but here's the important part. They owned the rights to most of the Beatles' songs. Yes, you heard that right. The Beatles didn't own their own songs. A company owned them. How did that happen? It's a long story, but here's the short version. Back in the 1960s, when the Beatles were young and didn't understand the business side of music, they signed deals that weren't great for them. Their manager and others made decisions that resulted in the publishing rights being sold to different companies. Eventually, a man named Lou Grade and his company ATV bought those rights. So even though John Lennon and Paul McCartney wrote those songs, they didn't own them anymore. ATV did. This bothered Paul McCartney for years. He tried many times to buy back the rights to his own songs, but it never worked out. The prices were too high. The deals fell through. Other things got in the way. Then in 1984, something happened. ATV Music Publishing was put up for sale. This was huge news in the music industry. Whoever bought ATV would own the rights to some of the most valuable songs ever written. Not just Beatles songs, but thousands of other songs too. The catalog included songs from the Beatles, Little Richard, and many other artists. It was worth hundreds of millions of dollars in potential future earnings. Paul McCartney saw his chance. Finally, after all these years, he could buy back his own songs. The songs he wrote with John Lennon. The songs that meant everything to him. But he wasn't the only one interested. When ATV went up for sale, everyone wanted it. Big companies made offers. Rich investors made offers. Music executives made offers. And Paul McCartney was ready to make his move too. But there was a problem. Paul McCartney didn't want to pay the full price by himself. He thought the asking price was too high. He wanted to share the cost with someone else. So he reached out to Yoko Ono. Yoko was John Lennon's widow. John had passed away in 1980 and Yoko controlled his estate. Paul thought they could buy the catalog together. It made sense, right? They both had personal connections to those songs. They both cared about the Beatles' legacy. Working together would make it easier. But Yoko Ono wasn't interested. She didn't want to partner with Paul. She had her own reasons. So Paul McCartney was on his own. Meanwhile, guess who else was paying attention? Michael Jackson. Remember that conversation they had? The one where Paul showed Michael his book of songs. The one where Paul taught Michael about the importance of owning publishing rights. Michael remembered everything, and he started working behind the scenes. Michael Jackson hired a lawyer named John Branca. John Branca was one of the smartest entertainment lawyers in the world. Michael told him to look into buying ATV. John Branca got to work. He did research. He made calls. He found out everything about the catalog and what it would take to buy it. Paul McCartney had no idea what was happening. The bidding process took about a year. It was complicated. There were negotiations. There were other bidders who dropped out. There were legal issues to work through. But in the end, Michael Jackson made the winning offer, $47, $5 million. In August 1985, the deal was complete. Michael Jackson officially owned ATV Music Publishing. That meant Michael Jackson now owned the rights to approximately 251 Beatles songs. Songs that Paul McCartney wrote. Songs that meant everything to Paul McCartney. Songs like Yesterday, Hey Jude, Let It Be, Come Together, A Hard Day's Night, and hundreds more. Can you imagine how Paul McCartney felt, your friend, the friend you mentored, the friend you gave advice to, the friend you taught about the music business? That friend just bought your songs, the songs you created, the songs that came from your heart and your soul, and there was nothing you could do about it. When Paul McCartney found out, he was devastated. He felt betrayed. He felt hurt. He felt angry. In interviews years later, Paul talked about how painful it was. He said he called Michael. He asked him, "Why did you do this?" According to Paul, Michael's response was simple. "That's just business, Paul. Just business." Those words hurt Paul deeply, because to him it wasn't just business, it was personal. Those songs were his life's work, his legacy, his contribution to music history, and now someone else controlled them. The friendship between Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson was never the same after that. They stopped making music together. They stopped hanging out. The warmth was gone. Paul McCartney has spoken about this many times over the years. He always says the same thing: it hurt because they were friends. It would have been different if a stranger had bought the catalog. But Michael knew how much those songs meant to Paul. He knew the history. He knew everything. And he still did it. Now, here's where things get complicated. Let me ask you something. Was Michael Jackson wrong for buying the Beatles catalog? On one hand, you could say yes. Absolutely. He betrayed his friend. He used information that Paul gave him in private. He took advantage of the situation. That's not what friends do. But on the other hand, you could say no. Michael Jackson didn't do anything illegal. He didn't steal the songs. He bought them. He made a business offer, and that offer was accepted. The catalog was for sale to anyone who wanted it. Paul McCartney had the same opportunity to buy it. Paul didn't move fast enough. Paul didn't want to pay the full price alone. Paul made choices too. Michael Jackson saw an opportunity and took it. That's business. That's how the world works sometimes. Some people say Michael was just being smart. He listened to Paul's advice and followed it. He invested in music publishing exactly like Paul told him to do. Is that really betrayal, or is that just paying attention and taking action? Others say that some things are more important than business. Friendship should matter. Loyalty should matter. Some opportunities you should walk away from even if they are profitable. What do you think? Really think about it. If you were Michael Jackson, what would you have done? Here's where the story gets even more interesting. That $47.5 million investment, it turned out to be one of the smartest financial moves in entertainment history. The value of that catalog kept growing and growing and growing. In 1995, Michael Jackson made another major business decision. He merged his ATV catalog with Sony's publishing division. The new company was called Sony/ATV Music Publishing. Michael Jackson owned 50% of the new company. Sony owned the other 50%, and the catalog didn't just include Beatles songs anymore. Sony/ATV became one of the largest music publishing companies in the world. They acquired more and more songs over the years. By the time Michael Jackson passed away in 2009, his share of Sony/ATV was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Some estimates say it was worth close to $1 billion. That $47.5 million investment, it multiplied many times over. Paul McCartney could have owned all of that, but he didn't. Michael Jackson did. The story doesn't end there. For years, Paul McCartney fought to get his songs back. He used every legal method available. He worked with lawyers. He waited for opportunities. And in 2017, something happened. There's a law in the United States that allows songwriters to reclaim their copyrights after a certain number of years. It's called termination of transfer. It's complicated, but basically, it gives the original creators a chance to get their work back after decades have passed. Paul McCartney started the legal process to use this law. He wanted his songs back. Sony, who now owned Michael Jackson's share after his death, didn't want to give them up. There was a legal battle. But eventually they reached an agreement. The terms weren't made public, but Paul McCartney finally got some control back over his own songs. After more than 30 years, some people say he's still working to get more. The fight isn't completely over, but at least Paul McCartney has made progress. So what can we learn from all of this? Let me break it down for you. Lesson 1. Understand the business side of what you do. Whether you're a musician, an artist, a writer, or a creator of any kind, you need to understand the business. Paul McCartney understood this later in life, but not early enough. The Beatles signed bad deals when they were young because they didn't know better. If you create something valuable, learn how to protect it. Learn what you're signing. Learn what rights you're giving away. Lesson 2. Be careful who you trust with information. Paul McCartney gave Michael Jackson valuable advice. He probably never imagined Michael would use that advice against him. But he did. This doesn't mean you shouldn't trust people, but be careful, especially when it comes to business and money. Sometimes people surprise you, and not always in good ways. Lesson 3. Take action when opportunities appear. Michael Jackson saw an opportunity and moved quickly. Paul McCartney hesitated. He didn't want to pay full price. He wanted a partner who wasn't interested. Sometimes you have to make big moves by yourself. Sometimes waiting too long means losing your chance forever. Lesson 4. Money can complicate friendships. This is maybe the most important lesson. Money changes things. Business changes things. When money gets involved in friendships, things can get messy. If you ever go into business with a friend, be very careful. Make sure you understand what you're getting into. Make sure both people are on the same page. Lesson 5. Legacy matters. At the end of the day, this story is about legacy. Paul McCartney's songs are his legacy. He wanted to control them. He wanted to own them. That mattered to him more than the money. Think about what your legacy will be. Think about what you're creating. Think about what will last after you're gone. Let me give you some numbers that will blow your mind. That catalog that Michael Jackson bought for $47, $5 million in 1985. It's worth much more today. When Sony bought Michael Jackson's estate's share of Sony/ATV in 2016, after Michael had passed away, they paid $750 million just for Michael's half. That means the total value of Sony/ATV was estimated at around $5 billion, and that was in 2016. It's probably worth even more now, and the Beatles songs are still at the heart of that catalog. Those songs still generate millions of dollars every year. Every time you hear a Beatles song in a movie, someone is getting paid. Every time a Beatles song plays on the radio, someone is getting paid. Every time a commercial uses a Beatles song, someone is getting paid. Michael Jackson understood this when he was 26 years old. He understood that songs are assets. He understood that owning music is like owning real estate. It appreciates in value. It generates income. It creates wealth. That understanding, that vision, came partly from Paul McCartney's advice. The irony is painful, isn't it? So here we are at the end of this story. Two of the greatest musicians who ever lived. Friends who made music together. Two people who respected each other's talent. And then a business deal that changed everything. Paul McCartney lost his songs. Michael Jackson made one of the best investments in music history. A friendship was destroyed, and the music industry learned a valuable lesson about the importance of publishing rights. Is there a villain in this story? Is there a hero? I don't think it's that simple. Michael Jackson wasn't evil for buying the catalog. He was ambitious. He was smart. He was taking advantage of an opportunity. Paul McCartney wasn't foolish for losing the catalog. He was trusting. He was hopeful. He was trying to do things the right way. Sometimes in life, good people end up on opposite sides of a situation. Sometimes there's no clear right or wrong, just different perspectives, different priorities, different choices. What I hope you take away from this story is an understanding of how the music industry works, how business relationships can be complicated, how money can change things, and how important it is to protect what you create. If you're a young person watching this, remember, whatever you create, whatever you build, make sure you understand how to protect it. Make sure you know what you're signing. Make sure you think about the future, because the things you create today could be worth millions tomorrow, and you want to make sure you're the one who benefits from that. All right, that's the story of how Michael Jackson acquired the Beatles song catalog from right under Paul McCartney's nose. It's one of the most incredible stories in music history, and now you know all about it. So let me ask you one more time. After hearing all of this, what do you think? Was Michael Jackson wrong? Was he just being smart? Or is the truth somewhere in the middle? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, and I love hearing what you think. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and join the family. We tell stories like this every week, and you don't want to miss them. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.